This is the ultimate question. What phone should I buy? Not everyone has $1,000 to spend on a phone, but at less than $250, this might be a decent choice. However, there are many instances of this phone being $100 for a reason. So let's talk about it. Should you buy the essential phone in 2021? Hello everyone, this is Matt from Real World Review. Check out the social media listed above if you want to talk tech, and subscribe if you want to continue watching tech. Let's get started. As usual, the screen is the first thing you see on a phone, and at launch, this was something special. In 2017, the iPhone X was rumored and proved to have a notch screen, so Essential wanted to beat Apple to the punch, and did in a decent way. Essential gave this phone a 5.71-inch LCD display that was pretty much a 2K screen at 1312 by 2560, giving the phone a nice 504 pixels per inch. At the bottom is a chin, given that it is an LCD display, while at the top there is a small cutout for the front camera and light sensors, almost giving it a true edge-to-edge display. Mind you, this was before we had the water drop notch, so this was actually kind of a cool thing in 2017. But this wasn't really the best. These screens are very fragile, and the screen quality doesn't really look that good, even at max brightness, which is about 500 nits. Not to mention there is some issue with viewing angles. Again, this was a new idea in 2017, but this phone would have heavily benefited from having an OLED in any design. Still, images look decent, but nothing to really write home about. Then the touch sensitivity was always an issue, and the solution was to add an option to change it in the developer settings. It kind of sounds like Essential knew that this was an issue. In 2021, the screen isn't anything special, but it does give you a nice view at the cutting edge in 2017. This phone was kind of one of its kind, reminding me of the Samsung Nexus style of phones. There was no branding on this phone at all, really. You kind of just got a new phone because branding doesn't really matter. Well, for Essential it kind of did, but still, I like this design. The front is soft glass, like I said, but it is Gorilla Glass 5, even though scratching is pretty easy to do on this phone. Also, the fact that this phone has a speaker grill at the top is kind of rare. I am surprised that I still have this because I was looking at a review done by MKBHD and his apparently fell out during the review process, which is probably only a couple weeks. Again, this is apparently a pretty common issue. In that area, we also get an LED for notifications, which is whatever to me, but some people care about that. Then the rest of the phone is weird but cool to me. The back is not glass, but rather ceramic. Then the midframe is not aluminum or steel, but actually titanium. This makes the phone heavier and supposedly more durable, but there is a plastic trim above that titanium which voids those claims. This phone I have is actually in really good condition, but online listings are littered with chunks of plastic missing or broken screens. But moving to the back, there are 2 dots, a hole, 2 cameras, and a circle array. The circle houses a dual LED flash and laser autofocusing unit, which both work well. Then we have the dual camera setup. More on that later. The middle is one of the 4 microphones on this phone, and then the 2 dots are magnetic inputs for accessories that, well, failed. This was made to work with the 360 camera and added a headset jack, the latter which was super difficult to find in the first place. And that's where the accessory part stopped. There is a fingerprint scanner on the phone, which normally works fine, but mine weirdly just failed for no reason. Not sure why. Then at the bottom we get a SIM card tray, meaning that the phone only has 128 gigabytes of storage and that's it, which isn't really bad even today. Then we get a decent speaker, nothing to brag about here, and then a USB-C port on the bottom, which supports 27 watt charging in the box, but tests online show that there's only a max of 12 watts of real charging for this phone. No wireless charging, no true water resistance, no headset jack, no dual speaker setup, no always on display, and the phone even lacks tap to wake. All of this brings us to the next category. This phone failed. Well, the company really failed this phone, but let me explain. Let's start with the internals. The phone has a Snapdragon 835 chip with 4GB of RAM, both things which aren't actually that bad per se, but the phone is stuck on Android 10. Again, not a bad thing, but Google seems to be the only company to properly optimize the operating system to work with this architecture. With the Essential phone, there are often times where the apps will just hang, or the phone will lag, or even reset randomly. Not to mention that this phone gets pretty hot after a few minutes of doing something simple like using Twitter or YouTube. Oh, also, the vibrating motor is horrible on this phone. It's either too weak, too loud, or just feels mushy. It's just not that good. Then we have a 3040 milliamp battery, which isn't the worst, lasting through the day, when new, at least. Now the phone is a couple years old, meaning replacing the battery is almost needed, but involves almost always breaking the screen to do so. Not to mention the difficulty of sourcing a new battery for a company that doesn't even exist anymore. Honestly, that's where I should have started, seeing that companies like Razer, which hasn't even released a phone since 2018, is still sending out security updates to the Razer Phone 2, while the Essential phone received its last update in February of 2020, ironically. Lastly, we have the 3 cameras, which all shoot decent photos and video. The biggest part of this is the fact that we can get 4K on all of the cameras. Sure, only at 30 frames per second, but that was standard for this processor. The rear cameras are both 13 megapixel sensors, with one being a standard sensor and the other being a true monochrome sensor, giving you true black and white shots. Yeah, it is pretty pointless. Overall, the camera shoots decent everything. Decent photos during the day, decent video, and not so good low light shots, even with the help from HDR. Same with the front camera really, which is an 8 megapixel sensor, even though shots come out at 8.3 megapixels, which explains for the 4K option. Really, the phone is not made for the camera, which seems like an essential part of a phone, but apparently isn't. Overall, this phone sounds like a good phone, and it was in the past, but clearly this phone did not age that well. Now, should you buy this phone? Honestly, no. There are other options out there, and while yes, they may lack some software updates that this phone got, there are better devices out there. We are looking at the Samsung S8, LG V30, or even the Google Pixel 2 XL, all with OLED screens, better batteries, and much better camera options. And almost all of those can be found at that $100 price range in used condition. In the past, I overlooked the downside of this phone, but in 2021, I gotta say that I can't really recommend using this phone. Instead, I will give you some links to other phones in similar price ranges that are worth checking out in the description below. And if you're interested in actually buying this specific phone that I have, I'll let you know if it's available in the description below, and I'll probably add some stuff to it if I do end up sending it to you. Sorry for hating on this phone, but the Essential phone is no longer essential. And that's my review of the Essential phone, the non-essential phone. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below, and as always, thanks for watching.